Episode 2 of Scott and Sam in the AM. Welcome back. If this is your first time listening, I'm Sam. I'm here with my partner Scott. We get on here and we talk about everything from real estate to finance to health, sports, and everything in between. We try to keep it light and have a good time. If you don't follow us already, follow us at Scott and Sam Real Estate on Instagram, YouTube, and anywhere else you consume your social media content.
Plugs. It's Sam's birthday today. Everyone shout out. He's 33
23.
and still thinks he's 23. Happy birthday, Sam. What's your sign? What's March? What's that horoscope sign? What do they call those
You're
things?
asking the wrong guy, pal. The wrong guy.
No. It matters. It matters. What is it?
Whatever is intense, doesn't work well with others, and seems to smash their head against the wall at every turn. That's my sign. All right.
I think that's Myers-Briggs. That's not what I was talking about, but that's fine.
I want to get into a bunch of topics today. We're going to get into some of our recent commercial real estate deals, some of our recent lifting competitions that we're having between one another on social media that
Let's
I feel
start
like I'm
with that.
getting.
Let's start with
Let's
that.
not start. As well as I have some fashion questions I want to dive into. And then most importantly, today I'm going to set an end to the debate of buying versus renting. I'm so tired of seeing these people buy houses by the skin of their teeth, and I'm putting an end to it. All right? I'm going to make renting cool again. Bring back renting. So number one, Scott, we participated in a charity golf event at the end of 2025 for the Children's Hospital of New Orleans. It's a good cause. But what's not a good cause is the fact that they gave us gift cards to Johnny O. And I hate everything I got from Johnny O. I don't know if anyone wears Johnny O, but I'm having a terrible experience. So it made me think, Scott, you're the fashion guy.
This dude gets something for free and you're complaining about it?
Absolutely. Even if it came from a children's hospital, I'm complaining about it. So, Scott, to the young professionals out there that want to know, where do I go to get my work wardrobe? What are your top 3 or 4 outlets that you're going to go to build the ultimate men's professional work wardrobe?
You got to keep it affordable. So I'm going to go with Zara and I'm going to go with J. Crew. You can kind of mix and match. Zara goes a little hard in terms of like the trendiness. So you kind of dial it back. They have some decent work stuff. Doesn't last a whole long. J. Crew, you're going to spend a little bit more money, but I think they have more classics. And then, get your nice collared shirt, maybe a golf shirt or something like that you can wear on a more casual day. I don't know, man. I used to wear suits like every couple of days. Now I'm, T-shirt tucked into jeans with a belt and a pair of shoes from Italy.
In Scott's dream world, he's just a 65-year-old male living in the northeast section of the United States within earshot of some body of water. He's also lying through his teeth. He loves Billy Reed. He loves Grayson. I can't tell you the last time. Listen, I spent a decent amount of time around this guy. I can tell you the last time I saw him in a J. Crew shirt. Maybe his underwear or something is from J. Crew that I can't see, but everything I can see to the naked eye is pretty nice. And I think you pounded this into my head and taught me this. You would rather buy less clothes less often, but spend a little bit more on them and wear them for years.
Yeah, a wardrobe. Someone asked me this the other day. How do I build a wardrobe? A wardrobe is built over years, and it's one article of clothing at a time. If you go to the store and you buy 20 articles of clothing, I promise you, 15 of them are not ever being worn because you're just like,
shout out my wife.
You're
Shout out my
buying
wife.
too
I love
much.
you, honey.
You have to buy 1 or 2 really nice pieces at a time, but it takes time, right? Not everyone wants to do that. So I might buy 1 article of clothing a year, but it's something nice that will stay in my wardrobe. But to go back to the Billy Reed, just let's back up 5 years. First time I ever started working with Sam, this dude has some commission checks coming. So this dude goes to Billy Reed and drops, I don't know, $2,500 at a clothing store before the commission checks cleared his account. So Mr. Subaru over here, let's really talk about Sam's wardrobe and spending habits. that have changed some, but happy birthday.
Happy birthday. And
Your
again,
Billy
shout out my
Reed, your
wife.
Billy Reed
Nobody,
gift card is
nobody
on its
knows
way.
how to get a good deal like my wife, who will come home with multiple bags from TJ Maxx. And when I ask her how much it was $49. It was on sale 20%. I'm like, that's not a numeric value, honey. I don't understand how that works. I agree, for the most part, I have the creative eye of Stevie Wonder. So I really rely on what I see online, what I see in front of me, hence, my partner. And I pretty much just copy. If you didn't get that in the first episode, I'm a big believer. If you like what someone's doing, what's the term? Flattery is the most or imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, right? So this guy gets a BMW in 2015. Who gets a BMW in 2015
but hold
and a half?
hold on. So he buys a 328i, and it's in manual. It's black on black. It's a terrible spec. I had a 135, black on red interior, 6-speed manual. Like, he's trying to imitate, but he's doing his own version of that. It's just a poor.
There's no worse feeling than spending every dollar you have on a BMW, and then the first day driving it, you go to recline your seat, and there's no power seats. There's no bigger feeling of knowing that you just made a terrible mistake than manually adjusting your driver's seat in a BMW. I digress.
I don't think he even knew it was a 328, but that's fine.
No, still to this day, I have no idea what you're talking about. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is we have been trying to integrate our friends, family, and anyone we care about into our business. I'm sure if you're in real estate, you get this all the time. I could help you guys out. I'd love to get involved. Yeah, let me know how I can invest. And I appreciate that. That's great. It's a lot harder than it sounds. And it's even harder when you are taking money from friends and family, selling properties to friends and family. It can get really messy really quick. Most people seem like they just want to cut a check and then just get residual income, which is fantastic. I would love to do that too, but it's just not how it works. Which leads me to beg the question, Scott, for someone who is not involved in real estate, just works a W-2 job, has a little bit of extra income, but wants to get into real estate, recognizes the benefits of it, long term, how would you go about it if that was you or you were advising someone? And then number two, what can they expect out of it? This mythical word we keep throwing around, cash flow. Is it real? I haven't seen it. Right. And I got a lot of real estate.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, the truth is expectations are everything. So if you're not willing to do the work once you own the real estate, because buying a good deal, the job is just beginning. And I think people don't realize how much goes into managing a construction project, managing tenants, all of these things, and how much money it actually costs to do it. I think cash flow is a real thing, 100%. It's what keeps the asset alive. Doesn't mean there's much money left over for you, but without cash flow, a lot of people would have to turn their properties back to the bank, right? So there is cash flow in these properties, but you might not be seeing it for a long time down the road. What I think people mess up is, especially when they're just getting started in real estate, they don't have enough money to be actually buying it. Just because you can afford the down payment, you actually have cash flow when you have a substantial amount of money to put into the deal that you can now leave in the deal. All of my best deals, they're not because they're the best deals in the world that I ever bought. They're my best deals because I have so much equity in the deals. And that's what causes the cash flow. The ones that I have that are tighter, there really is no cash flow left over. And I think people miss that. And I also manage most of my own stuff. So I'm saving the money there, and then when things come up and they have to be fixed, I'm also saving because I'm not just paying a third party to go out and fix it. I'm paying someone I know, trust, and I have a relationship with. Most people don't have that. So, long story short, if you have money, you have a good W-2 job, you want to buy real estate, what I would suggest is find operators like Sam and myself, or maybe a much larger operator. Maybe you get smaller returns, but you're buying bigger assets. Let them deal with it. Give them the money. you will get probably some sort of preferred return, whether it's like 7-8% that comes back to you on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis. And then you'll participate in the upside when they turn around and they refinance the property with long-term debt, or they sell it in the next 3-5 years, something like that. But you're completely hands-off. And this is what they call a limited partner situation, where you are basically just cutting checks. You don't have much say in what's going on with the actual deal. You have to trust the operators, which would be the general partners, the GP. That would be Sam and I. And if you want to operate that way, that's a much better way to passively invest, which, yes, you will see passive income at some point. Go ahead.
Me personally, I have tried pretty much everything. In some way, shape, or form, you read about all this different stuff, the Burr method, flipping houses, just buying and holding properties, multifamily, single family, sub 2, owner finance. Scott and I have done it in some capacity across the board. I really can't think of a method.
Ground up development we have.
All right, ground up development. We have no experience ground development. But in terms of actual standing structures and trying to make money off them, we've tried it. And what I can tell you is, number one, I'm probably the worst property manager that has ever walked the face of the earth. Just because I love dealing with people. I actually consider myself a pretty personable person. It's just when someone looks me in the eye and says they don't have rent this week, but they'll have it next week, I'm the first guy to be like, okay, sounds good. And you're going to get eaten alive. So I would say don't buy a property unless you can healthily afford to hire a good qualified property manager. If you hire the right property manager, it'll save your life and make the whole experience so much more enjoyable. And unless you are in the game, either willing to manage the project like Scott said, or being it full-time like us, I wouldn't expect to make any short-term income at all.
What's the point then? Why do it at all?
I think if you sat down and did the math, we have sold people that we know and people we don't know, wholesale deals that are sub 2 deals with really low debt, or owner financing with really good terms, that if you sit down and you break down their cash exposure in the deal, that when the debt is paid off, what the property should be worth, and their leverage into it, they would never get that kind of return in the market. If someone buys a property for $30,000 out of pocket from us, and it's paid off in 15 years from now, and at that time it's worth $300,000, they're never going to get that return on $30,000 anywhere other than real estate. Now they got to manage it. They got to deal with it. They got, I'm not saying it's a foolproof game, but in the long-term sense.
It's a complicated way of saying with real estate comes leverage. With stocks, you don't really have leverage. You can't leverage your money, right? You put $1 in, you have $1 invested, right? With real estate, you put $1 in, you get $4 invested, typically, sometimes more. So for that reason, your money goes a lot further, but also real estate in the long run tends to go up, right? So if you're cash flowing every single month where you're not paying any money out of your pocket to run the property will be worth something more someday. Not to mention all of the tax benefits you get from owning the real estate. Write-offs, depreciation, stuff like that.
Scott's never heard of a dividend before, but we'll get into the next part. All right. So, which makes me think, I actually was thinking about that this morning. I don't know the first thing about cryptocurrency, just finances in general, and the stock market, stocks, bonds, whatever the difference is between the two. And I'm never going to try to act like I know anything about them. But I would guess, considering it's probably the highest paid profession in the United States, finance, that there are ways to get tax breaks and tax benefits if you're playing in that world like we do in real estate. I have to think so.
Yeah, they have like tax harvesting losses and stuff. They can like harvest loss and then push that over to something that is winning, and they can sell it off. I don't know, man. It's way more complicated than I know, but they do it.
But yeah, look at us. Maybe the second half.
You don't get the benefits that real estate has. Like, that's why they say diversify your portfolio. Like, you should have money in the stock market. Like, you shouldn't be all in one asset, I don't think. But I think whatever you want to focus on, put the majority of your money in that.
I'm waiting on those penny stocks, baby. Here I come. If those ever go big, you'll never be hearing from me again. All right. I've been making a lot of posts about this. Scott has been making some posts that argue with me, for lack of better words, and I'm getting unpleasant DMs from people saying, hey, your partner's saying something different. Yeah, that's the point. We very rarely agree on topics. I think that's why we move as fast as we do and we're getting as far as we have. Because if we did, or one of us was just a yes man to the other, and I don't want to hear, Sam, you be the yes man, give me a break. Maybe so. But we get so much further because we disagree on nearly everything. And we argue, debate, and talk about essentially every decision across our business and portfolio. And by having those conversations, we kind of teach ourselves what we need to hear, and we end up getting a much better end solution and plan. Every big thing or exciting thing that we have going on, from laundromat to RV park to flips and everything, came from some conversation late at night where we disagreed on something and then we made our points and we end up at a better solution. But this is one thing that I'm not going to concede on.
Well, just to add something to that real quick, if everyone knows, I am the pessimistic one, Sam is the optimistic one, okay? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I've learned to be a little more optimistic on things, but that kind of balances us out because I'm looking at everything like, how could this go poorly? Sam looks at it like, how could this go very well? And there's a balance there, right? Go ahead.
So that's right. Renting versus buying. I am seeing it too much. And I'm not just talking about the $250,000, $300,000, deals all the way up to, I'm talking all the way up to like $1.5 million, $2 million houses. And, in the game we're in, whether we're selling houses, your realtor, whatever, you have a very inside fastball type look into who's buying these properties. They submit forms showing, hey, I make this much. Here's what I qualify for. You see a lot of these mortgage brokers and lenders who are incentivized, obviously, to get people to buy houses for as much as possible. They seem to have these floating scales. If you make $100,000 a year, you can afford a $600,000 house. If you make $150,000, you can afford a $700,000 house, and so forth. I guess where I'm uncomfortable, if I was talking to a stranger in the way I think now after going through it a few times, is there is no world that you can show me proof where income is starting to match up with housing affordability across the country. It seems like people are still making a very similar entry level income. And I'm going to throw out the hourlies and things like that because we're probably going a step above that. But I'm talking about college educated young professionals going into the workforce. The average Joe, just like you and us, are probably making between $35,000 and $40,000, and on the high end, I don't know, $65,000 and $70,000, and then slowly, incrementally breaking out, increasing 3 to 5% to keep up with inflation, in air quotes, throughout their 20s.
That's why you buy real estate, but okay.
That's an anomaly, though. I'm saying most people don't even know where to start. I'm talking about just the average person looking to get married, start a family, buy a house. If you're making, let's just go on the high end, you make $60,000 your first year out of school, and you get a 3 to 5% raise with the hope that by the time you're 30, you're making almost $100,000 or maybe a little over $100,000. And then you get married to someone who makes an equivalent number, and you have a combined household income of $200,000 plus liabilities, plus children, plus all this stuff. I don't see how, and now, it seems like the tail end of it, but in the future going forward, how are people going to make enough money to keep up with rising housing prices, lower inventory? They're not making any more land without losing their shirt, because it seems like people are buying houses by the skin of their teeth.
Is this an argument to not buy houses, or is this an argument that people are overbuying?
It's an argument to not buy houses if you can't afford it, or not buy a house that you can't afford.
Okay, but what if going back to your last conversation of last podcast, you said, I'd rather live in an area and sacrifice and spend a little bit more on a house than move to somewhere I don't want to live that's more affordable. The problem is these people need to be close to their jobs. They need to be close to their families. And the problem is you can't drive an hour, or they don't want to buy a house that's more affordable.
But I think if you look at, I was just doing some high-level research on the areas that we buy and we invest. And for the most part, you can rent in these same neighborhoods that you could buy for half as much and not have to worry about taxes, insurance, and maintenance and all this stuff.
No, you can't. The inventory is not there. The
rental inventory?
Yes, the rent comps might be there, but go into the neighborhood that you want to live in and go find a house for rent for $6,000 a month opposed to the mortgage being 8 to 10, that's probably realistic. But there might be one or two of those that come up every couple months. There's so many more people out there looking. These people come from apartments. Then they have a family. Then they need a house to live in. So you either move to a cheaper part of the country, which there are. I live in one. And you go buy a house there. Or you stay renting in your apartment. Or what's really happening, our parents are helping out these children and getting them into houses that you and me can't afford on our own unless our parents stepped in and helped us. Right? So I don't think it's an argument to not buy a house. I think it's like, yes, people are overpaying. Like people are maxing out their budget because they don't really have an option. Yes, I think people get emotional when it comes to buying a house, but because they say they can afford it on paper. I agree with all that. But the alternative is either live in an apartment, live in something very small, but you're still not capturing any sort of equity. You're not capturing any sort of appreciation. And to your point, inventory is not going up and prices only seem to be going up. So you might as well get in now because your house is probably going to be worth a couple $100,000 more in a couple years, especially if you paid $1 million for it.
I think we're talking about a few very different, and I know I prefaced this argument by saying it goes the full gamut from the $300,000 buyer to the $1.5 million buyer. I understand, and I think I think my overarching point is for the amount of money that you need to put down, just the cash you need to expose, plus the monthly carrying costs, and the amount of those monthly carrying costs that is going to just interest in your first decade of ownership, which, most people don't live there. I know you always say there's 7 years plus or minus, and then they're moving. But
that's why rates are based off the 10-year.
Well,
reason.
I get it. Like if you're going to stay there for 30 years, you have a fully paid off house, you can almost guarantee it's going to be worth more than you're going to pay it today. Just like, our parents buying in 1992 compared to now. I get it. But at the same time, in 1992, the same houses that were the same houses, they're the same houses. Not talking about houses that have been built since then. These houses were all built in the 50s and 60s and 70s. They were selling for $1,000, and now they're selling for $1.5 million. That would mean that they need to sell for $5 million in 2050.
They might, dude. I don't know. Inflation might cause that
Who
to happen.
is going to be able to afford that?
The dollar gets cheaper, right? So it goes, right? Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying. If inflation increases 3% per year, I'm going to math myself out here. It's not going to work. My point is,
what's the alternative? What's the alternative to either buying or renting? I agree. People make bad decisions by buying houses they can't afford. I agree with that. But what is the alternative?
I don't know. I'm not. Maybe this is why the President of the United States should reach out to Scott and Sam Real Estate, bring us in on a consulting call for HUD. Maybe we can make a difference. Maybe we can help out. But
info at Scott and Sam Real Estate.
Info at Scott and Sam. That's not a real
Catherine,
domain.
can you make that when we hang
up? And you don't need to bring Scott in. I'm happy to just go, just me. He'll stay back to the president's cabinet. I think my point is, it scares me that these people are all incredibly leveraged. And I've said this to you for 10 years. And my opinion on it has never been stronger. I think by the time our kids are both infants, toddlers, by the time they are going to shop for a house, I think we are going to be living in some utopia type world where 60 to 70% of the people you know are going to be living in apartment style communities.
Right. So
Where,
buy now.
well, my point is,
Buy now.
I think people are going to be living in apartment style communities where everything is done for them. You don't cut your grass. You can DoorDash or whatever your groceries. There's a common area. You can go take your dog to poop and pee on this lawn here. You go inside, you play Xbox, you work from home, da 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 da. The fact of the matter is, most people who are working from home and who are not getting out there and doing deals and trying to progress and being aggressive are probably going to stay very stagnant with their income. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about $1 million houses becoming $4 or $5 million. And they are not going to have the percentage of people who are going to be able to afford them are going to get so small. And then the people who are going to be able to afford them are not going to want all these single family houses, I don't think. Because they're not going to be, I don't think they're going to be a good return on your investment. They're better off owning these big complexes like we want to get into.
Ultimately drive the prices of the homes back down.
Correct. Yeah. And now we're back where we started. Scott and Sam in the future.
So what is your point?
My point is,
you're not making a good point for renting.
if you can't afford a house, do not buy a house just to keep up with the Joneses. Or we have people we know that are doing this exact thing. In 7 years from now.
What about the point of most people build all of their net worth in the home that they live in? Period. They do it because they're forced to do it by paying their mortgage every single month. That you pay rent. What most people don't do is take the difference of what they're saving and go and invest it in the market. If you go and do that, you're at the 0.01% and you are, sure, go do that. That makes more sense. I agree.
I need a new F-150. Yeah.
Right. But most people are going to save their money by paying their mortgage down every single month. And then they will turn around and that's how they're able to buy the next house. I think that's why home prices are going so crazy, because all these people bought these houses 10, 20 years ago. They have so much equity. They're able to be like, I want to live in this neighborhood. I want to buy this house. I'll put all this money down and roll it into the next house. Tell me that's what you're going to do. That's what I'm going to do. When I sell my house, I'm going to roll into the next house. But I wouldn't have had that money saved if I didn't own the house. If you do that with renting, Grant Cardone is the only guy that argues this point, and it's because he is operating at a different level financially than most people, in terms of he's investing not to mention he makes like $100 million a year just from his one business, but like he's investing all of his other money into these massive assets, and he rents his $26,000 a month penthouse in Miami. It's not comparable to what people are doing. It's different.
I think it's a lot more than that. I agree with you. I think my overarching point is, if you're going to buy a house, and this is coming from two guys who sell houses for a living. We buy low and sell high for a living. If you can't comfortably put down 10 to 15%, I'm talking about you put it down and you still have 3 to 6 months in your checking account of cash on hand, and then your monthly PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, are no more than, I'd say, 40% of your take-home income. If you can check those boxes, you're probably in a really good spot. You could probably more than afford it. If the answer is no, maybe go rent for the next 36 months, get your tuchus to work, increase your income, and come back in 36 months from now. That house you want, there's going to be another one just like it for just a little bit more probably in 36 months.
I have a question. Why are banks so happy to lend to someone who makes $50,000 a year on a W-2 salary, but someone who makes $250,000 a year, self-employed, they don't want to lend to you?
Guaranteed income. I mean, I
it?
shouldn't. I know. I understand. I saw that.
Kidding me?
I saw that coming from a mile away the moment I said it. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't
understand it.
I agree with you. Listen, I think, like Cardone of all people says this more than anyone. Banks love people who have assets. If you have assets on your financial statement, it carries a lot more weight than you just saying you make $100,000 a year. And to go back to the point you had made about a lot of people are getting help from their parents and grandparents and such to buy these houses they can't afford. I've heard a really good argument about that lately about parents and grandparents want to see their children and their grandchildren enjoy life and have a good quality of life before they die. That makes a lot of sense. I would do the same thing for my kids. I hope to do the same thing for my kids. So I get it. If you have a couple extra million laying around and you can gift it through whatever means of, consult your local CPA. But if you can gift it or give it to your children, and that 35-year-old son you have who's making $90,000, little Jimmy, he's not a disappointment. It's just, he was never really into that kind of stuff. Now he can go buy that house with the big yard for his kids to run around. You can sit in the back with Jimmy and crack a cold one and watch your grandkids run around in your twilight years.
And guess what's going to happen to the price of that real estate?
Don't talk shit about Jimmy, but yeah, go ahead.
It's probably going to go up. It's probably going to be safe if you buy in the right neighborhoods. So it's the wealthy are protecting their money. I was actually just in the gym locker room this morning, and I heard an attorney over talking to someone else how he gifted his daughter $1 million. But what he did was he sent it to Morgan Stanley, and he let her borrow against it at 5.125% interest rate when you can get a 30-year at 6.5 right now. And she bought the house cash and then pays back the interest-only payments on that $1 million with the money that's invested in Morgan Stanley. So I thought that was pretty good. I was like, all right. Instead of buying the house just for $1 million, you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. And then you don't affect no capital gains because he never sold his stock.
You don't affect no capital gains. Put that on a t-shirt. Well, I think we can agree to disagree, but buy if you can afford to buy. I'm not against buying. I sell houses for a living. I get it. Buy a house if you can afford to buy it. But if you can't, don't. It's not a big deal. But buy that house before you buy that F-150, before you buy that watch, before you go on the shopping spree, before you go on the vacation. Buy the house first if you can. Do you feel like there is a number that people need to make? I actually was going to make a video about this. How much money do you think someone needs to make to buy $1 million house?
Like they have one stream of income?
Yeah, combined household income of X.
I would say like a minimum $500K, minimum. Like that, what's that, 30,000 a month? No, 40,000 a month? Gross?
Yeah, you're probably netting like $23,000 to $24,000 a month, I would guess.
Yeah, that's. I mean, so.
And if you're buying $1 million house, your payment's going to be every bit of 10 grand.
No, yeah, 6,500, 7,500, 20% down. Yeah, yeah, you're probably at like 70. I mean, yeah, that's your biggest expense. 35%, 40%. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say
lenders work off of gross, so that means you're making $40-some thousand a month, and they're working off of that number for their DTI. They're looking at 45%, probably capping them out for theirs. No, but if you make $500,000 a year, I guarantee you probably drive a pretty nice car. I guarantee you have pretty nice stuff. You're not living like a hobbit. I guarantee it. So, yeah, that's about the minimum, I would say. And I think it's still uncomfortable at that number. Because if you're like us, you might make that 1 year, and then you might make half that the next year, and then you might make more.
I'm a hobbit, yeah.
You have no idea.
Yeah.
So that kind of, but if you just have a job, if you're a surgeon or something, then yeah, go for it.
I think if you're a surgeon making $500,000 a year, you're
just getting started, all right?
Or you're removing toenails. I don't know. The surgeons I've talked to are making double that first year out of
they're working on like the
residency,
back and the brain and stuff. That's different level.
Yeah. All right. Thing I want to wrap up with today is probably the most important topic we're going to talk about. So if you follow Scott and Sam Real Estate at Scott and Sam Real Estate across all platforms, you saw Scott deadlift. What was that? 225? Was that 405 with a belt on, which I think you got to subtract like 30 or 40 pounds if you wear the belt.
Okay.
So yesterday,
How much did Sam put up yesterday? He said 4 plates are 4 plates. It doesn't matter.
that's right. 4 plates is 4 plates, even if the last one's a 25.
Yeah, if you look, it got a little thinner on the end. And what he did was he cut that off in the beginning of the video, so you only could see the first 3 plates.
That's right.
Didn't want people to know.
It's called editing, Scott. If you would help Catherine and I once in a while, we could teach
And
you.
you almost failed at 365.
Okay, I didn't almost fail. I was a no problem.
Barely got that. No problem.
It was a no problem. And then you
Dude,
let
your
go.
legs
You let go
started
at the
shattering.
top. You let go at the top, so that the 60-year-old woman getting personal trade behind you gets scared, like jumps out of her seat a little bit. What was that? Oh, that was just Sam dropping 365 pounds on the
You
ground.
want to blow your back out,
365
down.
solid ass pounds in the world. Words of the great Ronnie Coleman. But my point is,
How do you lift less than me and then say that's more impressive than when I?
let's also just talk about the shout out all the short kings out there.
How much do I weigh?
Shout out all.
weigh
It's not about. It's not.
180 pounds.
Fine.
I weigh
I'd love to have
less
this
than
conversation. I'd love to have this
I
conversation.
weigh
It's not
less than
about.
you.
It's not about. Shout out all the short kings out there. Scott is your king, and you just
I'm
don't
like
have to
6
go
feet
up or
tall.
down as far. That's just
I'm
that's
6
just
feet tall.
physics. That's just physics.
You're 6'2".
Yeah. There's a lot more going on. A lot longer limbs. A lot more risk of injury.
goofier.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Put a belt on. Put the belt on. He texts me. He goes, "Does the belt help?" I don't know, dude. Try
Listen,
it.
let's keep it professional. All right, let's not get into our personal. Okay,
Sure.
I'm gonna have to text him and apologize for calling him a short king after this.
Yeah, you will. What lift? What lift are we doing next week that you're also going to lose at? The only chance you have is squatting.
I was just going to say, I'd love to jump into some back
chance you
squats. I'd love to jump into some back squats. And that's
front squat?
I should be running away from back squats. You know how far down I got to go? I'm 80% legs.
I'm thinking bench press.
I'm thinking maybe like a fly or something like that. Something obscure.
No, what's the one that Rob teaches us? The booty blaster.
Oh yeah.
That thing's killer, dude.
Shout out Rob Sells Miami. Everyone give Rob Sells Miami. If you're still listening to this point of the pod, you should go follow Rob Sells Miami. Well, I think, and I've had some ups and downs in my fitness journey. When my son was born 2 years ago, I was probably in the worst shape of my life. I was 218 pounds. If you look at pictures of me, my face looks like a tomato. And all I did was just, all right, well, this is actually kind of impressive, but I used to be able to eat an entire pack of brown butter chocolate chip cookies from Whole Foods.
Wait. Let's stop right there. Hold on.
I
What
never
is the
read the
benefit?
nutrition label on it until
What is
after
the
I got in
benefit?
shape again. What's the benefit of it?
What's the benefit of eting 12 brown sugar?
Okay,
butter
idiot.
cookies?
Clearly you've never seen, they're the jumbo cookies, so there's only 4 of them. but they're
Maybe just like
460 calories each. So, listen, I was going through, what's that called when your wife's pregnant and then you just like are allowed to get out of shape
Yeah, you're a pussy.
concurrently with her? So that was my thing. And I actually never, after my son was born, I was like, all right, I got to get back in good shape. I can't be looking like a bag of milk when I want to be his Superman. And then my wife, like a month later, was trying to be nice to me and got me the pack of cookies. And it made me look at the nutrition facts. And I was like, oh my God. So anyway, now 2 years later, I'm in the best shape of my life. All right. I'm doing great mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
You still can't out deadlift me.
I know what I'd love to do for the podcast.
Best shape.
I know what I'd love to do for the podcast. This would be good for our followers. We should have a testosterone competition and see whose testosterone comes back higher. Don't say it like that. That didn't make me feel great. You must have had it done recently. There's something I don't know about.
What's your number?
Last May, I was 821. Give me the extra 1. Don't short me.
821. All right, cool. Well, I'll get those numbers after my peptide consultation.
I'll tell you, I know I know more people our age who have testosterone below 500 than I do who have it above 500. And I think, it comes from a multitude of things, but like the guys I know who are like strong, can bench way more than me, look good, but then their testosterone comes back and it's 350 or worse. And I feel like this is kind of that age now, 32, as you heard today, 33, where everything can kind of all fall apart. I feel great. Like I knock on wood, like I'm gonna blow my hamstring out tomorrow now, but I feel like I have now like the balance of like I still feel young enough that I have the cardiovascular, but now like I've kind of grown into my body where I feel like I have the strength that I didn't have in my young 20s. I don't know. Scott and I both have what you would call little boy syndrome, where you looked like a little boy until you were like 26, 27 years old. So I'm hoping now I'm in my peak. Maybe start throwing again. See what comes up on the radar gun.
No, I don't like that.
What? Me calling you a little boy?
I think I still am kind of in that phase though. I can't really get rid of it. I don't know what it's going to take to be 65 maybe. And they're like, oh yeah, you look 65.
That's for another episode. Well, that's a wrap. Episode 2 of Scott and Sam in the AM. If you're listening to this point and you didn't follow Rob Sells Miami, I don't know what you're doing. But I appreciate so much to everyone listening. Continue, please, to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our platforms, Scott and Sam Real Estate. Shoot us a DM. We'll bring it up here on the pod, and you'll be like D-list famous.